Here's a question for Becky, and let me just lay it out. And there's another way to phrase this, but maybe I don't need to. So give us 3 or 4 ways that you could turn a conversation toward Christ. Let's say you're having a conversation with somebody, and there hasn't been, I think probably, hopefully you understand that in the beginning, if you're developing a friendship, you're just hoping that the conversation rather naturally will just turn to Christ or Christianity or religion. There's a million ways it could happen. But let's just say it just hasn't happened, and you would like to take a little initiative. How would you do it, Becky?
One of the things that is important is understanding the use of questions in a conversation. First thing you need to find out is, what is this person's passion? What is their interest? What are they really passionate about? And we don't do this as a trick. We don't do it manipulatively. But we really ask questions. We're curious. We want to know. They're a doctor. Yeah, how did you get into medicine? What made you decide? What is your area of specialization? And again, this has to be sincere. If it's a trick, so you can slip in the gospel, it's not going to work. They can smell it. But as you're asking, let's use the example of a doctor. All right, so you're asking questions. One skill that we need is to ask the, how would I call it? The thought-provoking question, the issue question. For example, remembering now we're dealing with their area of interest. How do you give hope to patients who are terminal? All right, and we're dealing with their area of interest, but that's a thoughtful, reflective question. I find if you can ask that question, a God question really is pretty easy. Do you think it's possible that that this life isn't the only life? And we're talking about how do we get into conversations now. We're not talking about how do I then give them the gospel. I was talking to a student who was studying art in England, and this might have been America. Actually, I think it was America. And it was America. I said, "What's your major?" She said, "Art." I said, "What kind of art do you like? What do you do?" And she was telling me all the different things that she likes to do. And then I said, where do you think we get our ability to appreciate what is beautiful and what is ugly? I said, I had a professor, a biology professor at university, who began every lecture saying, man is nothing more than a meaningless piece of protoplasm, a fortuitous concourse of atoms. Every day, that's how we began the lecture. And I said, do you think a fortuitous concourse of atoms would have the ability to appreciate beauty? She said, I can't believe I've never asked myself that question. She said, I'm going to make a living at creating beauty, and I've never asked myself, where do we get that ability? She said, well, where do you think we get the ability? What do you think? And I said, do you think it's possible there is an invisible artist who created us from whence beauty comes? In other words, just asking questions about their area of interest can actually lead into a God question.
But there really aren't 3 or 4, questions that you can just have in the back of your mind that just always get you there. Basically, you're right. Questions that get to fundamental beliefs or fundamental issues of purpose, that sort of thing. That's a really great answer to the question, which is there are questions like that, but there's really not a set of 5 or 6 questions you could memorize and use. Otherwise, people will feel like you're basically a salesman and you're working through your protocols.
That's absolutely right, and they smell it.
And they smell it.